The first thing the aliens noticed about the humans wasn't their technology, their ships, or even their strange tendency to laugh when threatened. It was their fire. Not the fire of their engines or weapons, but the literal kind, the kind that crackled on wood and smoke, rising into the night as if it were a beacon. To the Council emissaries watching from orbit, it was baffling. Fire was something primitive species played with before they learned better. Advanced species had long since abandoned the flame for cleaner, controlled forms of energy. But here, on the colony world of Eridan 3, a cluster of humans had lit one anyway, right in the middle of their settlement. They gathered around it, singing off-key songs, passing drinks, and telling stories like children. "Observe," said Envu Kaldar, his mandibles clicking as he gestured to the feed. "This is what they build in the dark. A circle of combustion. No defensive barriers. No shield nets. They waste resources to amuse themselves." His tone dripped with contempt. His second in command, a lean reptilian with bioluminescent scales, let out a hissing laugh. "Primitive indeed. The stories were true. I expected savagery, but this is pathetic. They're like cubs, not warriors." Their laughter echoed in the observation deck as the humans roasted food over the fire, someone making a crude joke that had the group in hysterics. To the emissaries, it looked like weakness. To the humans, it was Friday night. Down below, sitting on a log by the flames, Captain Mara Kinsey tilted her head back and laughed harder than she had in months. She had been a soldier once, before she volunteered for the colony. Earth had sent her and a few hundred others to Eridan 3 with orders to tame the land, build homes, and represent humanity among the wider galaxy. For all the grand rhetoric, what it mostly meant was a lot of mud, busted equipment, and endless arguments over irrigation canals. But tonight, under the alien sky, she didn't care. The fire popped, her crewmates were happy, and for once, it felt like home. She had just taken a swig of homebrewed corn liquor when a faint shimmer crossed the stars. She froze. It wasn't natural. "Anyone else see that?" she asked, lowering the bottle. Her friend Jax, a mechanic with more tattoos than patience, followed her gaze. "Huh. Thought I was seeing things. Probably just one of the Council's ships doing a flyby. They love peeking at us like we're bugs in a jar." The group chuckled, but Mara didn't. Something in her gut twisted. The Council's ships didn't shimmer like that. Back in orbit, Envu Kaldar tapped his claw against the console. "They've seen us." "How?" "Their optics are outdated. They should not perceive the cloak." The reptilian narrowed his eyes. "Coincidence. Even a primitive can guess at shadows." Kaldar wasn't convinced. Humans had an unsettling way of noticing things they shouldn't. He leaned closer to the screen as one of the humans, a woman with cropped black hair and a scar down her jaw, stood, hand on her hip, staring directly into the night sky. Her gaze was sharp, defiant, and somehow it felt as though she was looking right at him. "Impossible," he muttered. But unease gnawed at him. Mara felt the fire crackle behind her, but her focus was fixed upward. She couldn't see details, not yet. Still, instinct prickled. Back in the Terran Defense Corps, they had drilled into her the importance of listening to instinct. Your brain noticed patterns before you consciously did. And right now, her whole body screamed danger. "Jax," she said, voice low. "Kill the music. Put the fire out." Jax blinked. "What?" "It's our only good whiskey left. I'm not wasting. Do it. Now." Something in her tone silenced any argument. The colonists scrambled, stomping dirt over the flames, dragging tarps over embers. Laughter died into tense silence. The stars above glimmered coldly, but Mara's skin crawled. A second shimmer crossed the sky. This time, everyone saw it. "Ships," someone whispered. "Council ships." "No," Mara said tightly. "Those aren't Council. Those are someone else." In orbit, Kaldar's mandibles twitched in amusement. "Look at them panic over shadows. Primitive prey always sense predators in the dark." But then something unexpected happened. The humans didn't scatter. They didn't cry or flee to shelters. They stood together, shoulders squared, scanning the skies with narrowed eyes. The woman, Kinsey, the file had said, was barking orders, positioning them as though she had a battle plan. Rage kindled, murmured the reptilian, unnerved now. Not fear. Rage. The ships descended. Not sleek council emissaries, but brutal raiders, hulls painted with the symbols of the Ordrak's marauders. They had come not to negotiate, but to plunder. To them, Eridan III was a backwater colony, ripe for easy conquest. And when they saw humans, they laughed, just as Kaldar had. Mara didn't laugh. Everyone grab whatever you can. Tools, shovels, rifles if you've got them. We don't run. But Captain, Jax hissed, they're armed with plasma cannons. I said we don't run. Her voice was steel. They picked the wrong campfire tonight. The first shots lit up the night, searing streaks of blue plasma cutting into the dirt. Colonists dove behind rocks and overturned carts, returning fire with old rifles and improvised launchers. The air filled with heat, smoke, and screams. In orbit, Kaldar leaned forward, fascinated. He had expected a slaughter. But the humans didn't fight like prey. They fought like something far more dangerous. They took hits, yes, but every fall only made the others fight harder. They screamed their anger, hurling explosives cobbled together from mining supplies. And when one of the marauders landed, armored and towering, expecting easy domination, Mara herself met him with nothing but a broken shovel handle. She dodged the plasma blade, rammed the wood into his throat, and tore his weapon free before gunning him down with his own rifle. The colonists roared. Kaldar felt a chill. The fire he had mocked earlier now burned in their eyes. A primitive flame, but one that could spread into something unstoppable. The raiders thought it would end quickly. They had stormed settlements across half the fringe worlds, and always it was the same, terrified cries, surrender, submission. But Eridan III was different. The first wave of marauders fell, not to heavy weapons or fortified defenses, but to miners with pickaxes, farmers with shovels, and a scarred captain wielding fury like a blade. When the smoke cleared from the first skirmish, 3 of their armored warriors lay broken in the dirt, their helmets shattered open, their weapons stolen by the very colonists they'd come to enslave. From orbit, Kaldar watched in silence, mandibles twitching nervously. These were not the outcomes he had predicted. Impossible, he muttered. They have no training. They fight with, what is that, garden tools? The reptilian beside him hissed softly. Not training. Rage. And rage is dangerous when given shape. On the ground, Mara Kinsey dragged one of the stolen plasma rifles across the camp, her eyes blazing. Sweat and dirt streaked her face, and her hands shook from adrenaline. But her voice carried with authority. They'll regroup, she snapped. This was just the probe. The real attack is coming. Jax tossed her a canteen, wiping grime from his arms. Captain, we barely survived that. Half our people can't even shoot straight. What happens when they drop the rest of their raiders? Mara tightened her grip on the rifle. Then we make them regret landing. The colonists murmured uneasily, but Mara's steadiness anchored them. Some still trembled, but no one ran. They had seen the marauders bleed. And once you see that, once the myth of their invincibility cracks, fear loses its grip. The second wave came with fire and thunder. Dropships screamed down from the sky, slamming into the soil with brutal force. Dozens of armored warriors emerged, plasma rifles glowing, their war cries shaking the air. This time, the humans were ready. Mara had split them into squads. Farmers crouched with hunting rifles in the tree line. Miners prepared explosives made from blasting powder and rock charges. Engineers rigged tripwires between rocks. Every colonist had something in hand, stone, steel, or fire. As the raiders advanced, the humans struck. A homemade explosive turned the first line into a fireball. Jax whooped as his improvised launcher, built from pipe scraps, sent a blast straight into the dropship's fuel pod. It erupted like a second sun, flipping marauders end over end. The aliens screamed, but the humans screamed louder. It was chaos, brutal and raw. Mara herself fought like a force of nature, ducking behind cover, rising only long enough to fire bursts from the plasma rifle she'd stolen. When one of her colonists fell, she dragged them back and pressed a weapon into another's hands. Rage burned in her chest, hotter than fear. In orbit, Kaldar gripped the console with clawed hands. His eyes widened as feed after feed showed armored marauders faltering, stumbling back, even breaking formation. "These humans," he whispered. "They don't retreat." The reptilian shifted uneasily. "They should be overwhelmed, yet they adapt. Look, they are using our enemies' own weapons against them. And there, tools as if forged for war. This is not primitive." "Not primitive," Kaldar admitted softly, "but primal." The council emissaries weren't the only ones watching. Across the raider comms, their commander growled in fury. "Worthless prey! They are farmers! Break them!" But it wasn't working. Every step forward cost them more than they had prepared to lose. The humans weren't just resisting, they were turning the ground into a nightmare. Sharp stakes in the mud-pierced armored boots. Tripwires detonated charges under their transports. Smoke bombs made of burning crops cloaked ambushes. And through it all, the humans shouted, cursed, and laughed. They mocked the raiders even as plasma fire scorched the dirt at their feet. One marauder, towering and twice the size of any human, cornered a young colonist, weapon raised for the killing blow. Mara sprinted forward, grabbing a heavy spade. She swung it with both hands, the metal edge smashing into the side of the alien's helmet. It staggered. She swung again, harder, screaming with every ounce of strength until the helmet cracked like glass. The marauder collapsed. She spit on the body. "Primitive enough for you?" The colonists roared with savage delight. The battle dragged into the night. Fires lit the camp, shadows dancing across terrified yet determined faces. The marauders pulled back at last, leaving smoldering wrecks and dozens of their dead. The colonists were battered, wounded, but alive. Silence fell. For a moment, no one moved. Then Jax broke it with a breathless laugh. They're running." Mara collapsed onto a log, clutching her rifle. "Not running. Regrouping. They'll be back. Stronger." "Captain," said one of the farmers, eyes wide, "we can't fight them forever. We need help." Mara's gaze hardened. She lifted her eyes to the night sky, where faint glimmers still hovered. "Then it's time the council stopped watching and started answering." In orbit, Kaldar flinched as if struck. She was staring again, right at the cloaked ship. How? It was impossible. And yet, deep inside, he felt a strange unease. The human's rage had not burned out with the fight. It had only grown brighter, like coals stirred to flame. On the ground, Mara rose to her feet, shoulders squared. "Listen up," she called, her voice carrying across the exhausted colonists. "We are not prey. Not now. Not ever. They think we're primitive? Then let's show them what primitive rage looks like when you corner us." The colonists raised their fists, their voices rising into a ragged, furious cheer. High above, the emissaries watched in silence. The data feeds recorded everything: the broken weapons, the improvised traps, the sheer ferocity that no model could predict. And though Kaldar was sworn to objectivity, he felt something alien crawl into his chest. It was fear. The marauders did not take humiliation lightly. When dawn rose over Eridan III, the smoke of burned crops still hung heavy, the ground littered with wreckage and alien corpses. The humans were exhausted, wounded, their clothes torn and faces streaked with soot, but their eyes blazed with something no raider commander had expected to see: defiance. From orbit, Envoy Kaldar watched the feeds, mandibles clenching tighter with each passing moment. The marauder fleet was repositioning, their commander roaring orders over open comms. Hundreds of raiders would be dropped next. Plasma cannons were being armed. War beasts, chained and restless, were being ready to tear through human defenses. "This time," hissed the reptilian beside him, "they will be crushed. No rage can match steel forever." Kaldar wanted to believe it. Yet when his gaze returned to the human camp, he felt doubt gnaw at him. The woman, Kinsey, stood atop a mound of broken crates, rallying her colonists. Her voice carried even through the static of the feed, and every scarred, battered human lifted their head at her words. "They'll come back stronger," she said, gripping the plasma rifle in one hand. "But so will we. We've seen them bleed. We've seen them break. They think they can scare us into submission. They think fire, smoke, and numbers will crush us. Well, they've never met humans who've run out of options." Her voice hardened. "We don't have warships. We don't have armies. What we do have is each other, and a rage they'll never understand. Rage is what makes us stand when we should fall. Rage is what turns fear into fury. So tonight, we don't wait for them to come to us. Tonight, we take the fight to them." A murmur ran through the colonists, fear, disbelief, but also something deeper. A spark catching on dry kindling. From orbit, Kaldar whispered, almost involuntarily, "They plan to strike back." The reptilian scoffed. "They are primitives. Their anger makes them reckless. They will be annihilated." But Kaldar wasn't so sure. By nightfall, the humans were moving. Jax had led a team into the wreckage of the first dropship, tearing apart power cells and stripping plasma coils. The miners had turned their charges into shaped explosives. Farmers soaked cloth in fuel and wrapped them around glass bottles. Every scrap became a weapon, every hand a soldier's. Mara led from the front. She wore pieces of scavenged raider armor, scorched and dented, over her work clothes. A crude banner had been painted across one of the colony's plows, a red handprint smeared over steel. It wasn't elegant, but it was enough. They moved silently through the hills, using the terrain the raiders had ignored. When the Marauder camp came into view, a sprawling field of dropships, tents, and chained beasts, the humans crouched in the tall grass, eyes wide. Jax whistled under his breath. "That's a lot of them." Mara's lips curved in a grim smile. "Good. More targets." The plan was desperate, insane even, strike the raider camp before they could launch their assault. The humans didn't expect to win. They expected to hurt them badly enough that the marauders thought twice before coming again. But deep inside, Mara's rage whispered of more. The first explosion ripped through the raider fuel depot, a fireball so bright it turned night into day. Panic spread instantly. The raiders rushed to respond, weapons drawn, shouting orders, but the humans were already among them, shadows with fire in their hands. Bottles ignited tents, traps snapped under armored boots, miners hurled explosives into clusters of enemies. The camp erupted in chaos. Mara charged with a roar, rifle blazing, cutting down a marauder before swinging the stock into another's face. Around her, colonists fought with wild fury, clubs, knives, even sharpened farming tools dripping with alien blood. The war beasts were loosed, monstrous creatures of fang and claw. One barreled toward the humans, towering twice as tall, eyes glowing with hunger. Colonists scattered, but Mara didn't. She raised the plasma rifle and emptied the entire cell into its skull. The beast dropped inches from her feet, smoke curling from its ruined head. The colonists screamed in triumph, voices raw, primal, terrifying. From orbit, Kaldar couldn't look away. He had studied hundreds of species, documented thousands of battles. None of them looked like this. There was no discipline, no coordination in the human assault, yet there was a terrible power in it. Every loss fueled their fury. Every fallen comrade became a reason to kill twice as many. They should have been broken. Instead, they burned brighter. This is not war," Kaldar whispered. "This is vengeance." The reptilian trembled. "They are a small colony. Imagine if there were more of them." The thought chilled Kaldar to his core. The Marauder commander bellowed in rage, towering above his warriors. "You dare! You dare strike us?" He raised his massive vorax, cleaving through the chaos. "Break them!" Mara saw him across the battlefield, his armor gleaming under firelight, his blade dripping human blood. Her breath caught, but not in fear. Something inside her surged, a furnace of fury so hot it felt like her veins were molten. That one's mine, she growled. She sprinted, cutting through enemies with wild precision. A marauder lunged, she jammed a knife under his chin. Another swung at her, she ducked and fired point blank. Nothing slowed her. The commander loomed ahead, his axe raised high, his laughter booming. You are nothing but animals, he roared. Mara slammed into him like a storm. His axe came down, she rolled aside, the blade gouging earth. She rammed her rifle against his chest and fired. Sparks sprayed as the plasma scorched his armor, but he didn't fall. With a backhand blow, he sent her sprawling. Pain exploded across her ribs. Her vision blurred. But when she saw him step forward, towering, laughing, something broke inside her. Or maybe something was unleashed. She rose with a scream, not of fear, but of rage. Pure, unyielding rage. She grabbed the shattered shovel strapped to her back, the same tool she'd used in the first fight, and charged. The commander swung, but she ducked low, ramming the jagged end straight into the gap of his armor. He howled, staggering. Mara ripped the weapon free and struck again. And again. Each blow fueled by every scream, every drop of blood, every colonist who had fallen. She was a blur of fury, a storm of blows. The commander swung desperately, but she caught the haft of his axe, twisted, and shoved with every ounce of strength. The weapon clattered to the ground. The marauder commander fell to his knees, eyes wide in shock. Mara lifted the broken shovel high, her voice raw and ragged as she roared. This is what you call primitive! She drove the weapon down, splitting his skull with a sickening crack. The battlefield went silent. Every colonist froze, every marauder stared. Their commander lay broken at a human's feet, blood pooling in the dirt. Mara stood over him, chest heaving, face streaked with blood and firelight. The humans raised their weapons and screamed their fury into the night. The marauders broke. From orbit, Kaldar's mandibles hung open in stunned silence. He had never seen the Ordrax flee before. Never. Yet here they were, abandoning their dead, shoving each other into dropships, desperate to escape the wrath of a colony armed with rage and farming tools. The reptilian beside him whispered, almost reverently, "They are not primitive. They are terrifying." Kaldar could only nod. The dawn after the battle came slow, crawling over the ridges of Eridan III like a wary guest. Smoke still hung in the air, rising from shattered dropships and scorched earth. The camp smelled of blood and ozone, of fire and sweat. Yet amidst the ruin, the humans stood tall. Mara Kinsey leaned on the broken shovel she turned into a weapon, its jagged edge still dark with alien blood. Her chest heaved with exhaustion, her arms ached as if they were made of lead, but her eyes never lost that fierce light. Around her, colonists moved in silence, tending the wounded, stacking alien corpses, collecting whatever weapons the marauders had left behind in their retreat. They had won. Against every odd, against every weapon, against every prediction, they had won. From orbit, Kaldar watched the aftermath with something he had never felt before. All. The data feed showed a species battered but unbroken, bloodied but standing. He had mocked their fire, their primitive tools, their laughter in the dark. Now he understood it was never weakness. It was resilience. It was defiance. It was rage transformed into survival. Beside him, the reptilian emissary whispered. The Ordrax ran. I did not believe it possible. They fled from farmers. Kaldar's mandibles clicked. Not farmers. Humans. He could already hear the questions that would ripple through the council when they saw this footage. What were these creatures Earth had released into the galaxy? Why did they fight as though death itself were nothing to fear? And what would happen when they no longer fought to survive, but to conquer? On the ground, Mara stood before her people. They were bruised, bandaged, bone-tired, but alive. The broken plow banner still stood behind them, painted with its crude red handprint. It had become a symbol overnight. They'll be back, one of the colonists said quietly, staring at the horizon as if waiting for the marauders' return. They won't let this go. Mara nodded. Good. Then we'll be ready. Another, younger colonist stepped forward, voice shaking. But we can't hold forever. We don't have enough food, enough medicine, enough. Mara's voice cut through like steel. We have enough. Because we have each other. They thought rage was weakness. They thought fire was primitive. They were wrong. Rage is survival. Fire is life. And as long as we keep both burning, we cannot be broken. The colonists straightened, shoulders squaring, jaws tightening. In their eyes was something no marauder, no emissary, no council could ever erase: the knowledge that they had stood against an empire and endured. The days that followed were grim but determined. Wounded were treated, defenses rebuilt, weapons scavenged. The humans did not celebrate with feasts or songs. Their laughter, once loud around the campfire, had quieted. But beneath the silence was something far more dangerous: resolve. When the next ship appeared in orbit, streaking across the sky, the colonists didn't panic. They readied their weapons, stood shoulder to shoulder, and waited. But it was not a marauder vessel. The cloaked council cruiser descended slowly, revealing itself at last. Its sleek hull cast long shadows across the battered settlement. The colonists tensed, unsure whether this meant salvation or new enemies. From the ship's belly, a platform extended. Kaldar himself descended, flanked by guards. His mandibles clicked nervously as he stepped onto scorched soil still sticky with alien blood. Dozens of human eyes locked onto him, hard and unblinking. Mara approached, weapons slung over her shoulder, dirt and blood still clinging to her skin. She looked at him with the same intensity she looked at the night sky when she first sensed his ship. As if she could see straight through him. "You've been watching," she said flatly. It wasn't a question. Kaldar inclined his head. "Yes." "And?" Her tone dripped with challenge. For the first time in his long career, Kaldar struggled to find words. He had written countless reports on countless species. But nothing in his carefully measured vocabulary seemed adequate. At last, he spoke with simple honesty. "You are not what we thought." Mara's lips twitched into a humorless smile. "You thought we were primitive. Weak. Something to be studied, maybe pitted." "Yes," Kaldar admitted. "We saw your fire, your tools, your laughter. We mistook it for simplicity. But now—" His gaze swept across the battered camp, the wounded standing tall, the scavenged weapons gleaming in human hands. "Now I see fire is not weakness. It is warning." Behind Mara, Jax barked a laugh. "Took you long enough." The colonists chuckled, bitter but proud. Kaldar flinched at the sound. It was not the laughter of prey. It was the laughter of predators who had survived the hunt. That night, the colonists rebuilt their fire. The council emissaries were invited, no, commanded, to sit among them. Kaldar found himself at the edge of the flames, the heat prickling against his chitin, the smoke clinging to his senses. He watched the humans pass bottles, tell stories, patch wounds with crude but effective methods. And then, as the flames rose, something extraordinary happened. They sang. Not songs of victory, not hymns of triumph. Rough, off-key songs of sorrow and rage, of memory and endurance. Songs older than their technology, older than their colonies, older than their wars. Songs that carried the weight of 1,000 years of struggle, of rising again every time the world tried to crush them. Kaldar listened, transfixed. It was not primitive. It was primal. It was a declaration. When Mara's voice rose above the rest, scarred and raw but unyielding, he felt a chill crawl through him. He realized then what the marauders had felt as they fled, the sense that these humans could not be broken, only burn brighter. When the song ended, silence fell heavy. Mara stared into the flames, then spoke without looking at him. "You're going to tell your council we're dangerous. That we're unstable. That we fight like animals." Kaldar hesitated, mandibles clicking. "Yes." She turned her gaze on him, sharp as a blade. "Good. Because that's the truth. We're dangerous when cornered. We're unstable when threatened. And when someone calls us primitive," she jabbed a finger toward the fire, "we show them what primitive really means." Her words burned hotter than the flames. Kaldar bowed his head, unable to deny it. The galaxy will fear you. Mara smiled, cold and proud. Then they'll leave us the hell alone. Weeks later, when the council debated the footage, the chamber fell into uproar. Some demanded humanity be contained, quarantined, stripped of weapons. Others argued they should be courted, allied, even feared. But one truth echoed in every corner of the chamber: humanity was not primitive. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was rage. And rage could never be controlled. On Eridan 3, the colonists rebuilt, their fire burning each night. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they sang. Sometimes they stared into the flames with haunted eyes. But always they endured. And when Mara looked at the fire, she remembered the words that had carried them through the storm. Rage was survival. Fire was life. Primitive? Maybe. But primitive had been enough to drive an empire to its knees. And that, she thought with grim satisfaction, was only the beginning.